Friday, 10th of October. That's when I took the first shot for this project. So what's that? It's about a year and 9 months since the start of animation until its final release. That's not even when the first idea of this video was conceived. I think that was back in January of 2021. Forrest had reached out to me about working on this Miles Morales video. He had seen some of my work from the Justice League series. I pretty much animated from October of 2021 up until February of 2022, completing the opening scene. Then had a rest to work on some of my own projects. Picked the project back up in October of 22 and hammered away at it until about now. The frame rate that this and all my projects are shot at is 15 FPS. I've had a lot of people be surprised when I tell them I shoot at this frame rate because they wonder how do I get it so smooth. A lot of the time people mistake a higher frame rate with smoother animation, but it's mostly just how you animate the figures, the camera, the environment, everything. Easing in and out is necessary where it's needed, and a lot of it is just getting the correct weight of things. Like, say for instance you have a heavy object and it drops fast. As it lands, it most likely won't bounce. It may even shake the ground and things around it. Where with a shot like Miles swinging through the air, he's light, he's agile, but he's also slinging himself with the webs most of the time. So he's not going to fall straight away. He's kind of going to have this gradual movement as he glides through the air, rising and then falling. A lot of it is just understanding how natural movement works. That's if you go for a realistic approach like I do, and getting a lot of practice with the FPS you want to shoot at. Every frame rate is going to be different. Here's an example of Miles throwing these speedy punches. It's about 3 frames for each punch, which normally would look sloppy if it's not animated right, since his body has like this jittery motion. But you can make it work by having his head be consistently smooth and the camera movement. It slowly zooms in, selling the effect. This was shot with a Canon EOS 1300D and a Logitech C920, just alternating between the two cameras on whatever the shot requires. I prefer to shoot with my Canon, but sometimes a webcam is just necessary to get these dynamic camera movements. It can go in and out of sets too, so it's also really great for a starting point. I also just bought this probe lens, but there's only one shot in this video that I use it. The full video was animated in Dragon Frame. It's an excellent program and highly recommended if stop motion animation is something you want to take seriously. Forrest and I both spitballed ideas, but we really wanted it to be inspired by the Raid Redemption films. The original idea was to have Miles proceed up this building, taking out thugs on different floors as he makes his way up. The enemies get more difficult and then he finally reaches the big boss at the top. Originally, we were just going to have a nice clean building, something that you would like see from Oscorp. I kind of suggested that we give the building a bit of a more grunge type feel, more street. That way, I feel like it would give it a bit more life. You could really tell that a group of thugs were living here. There's graffiti on the walls and a bunch of equipment just lying around, most likely stolen. Also, just from the start of the video, opening the crates, you can sort of tell that they work in like black market weapon dealings or something. It also helped having the building be this way with scattering bricks around, since I didn't really have much of just that clean grey brick. It allowed me to cut corners and use a variety of different bricks and colours just to fill out the set. I spent a good amount of time this video set designing. You want to make sure that the set is accessible so you can get your hands in and out without bumping anything over, but also look pretty. You want to be able to take down walls and move the set around however you like, just to get shots from all different angles. It took us a while to decide who the villain was going to be, and I don't even think we decided on Doc Ock until about 25% into the project. The bag that the figure's carrying at the start, it just had a normal minifigure in it because I didn't even know what the design of Doc Ock was going to be until it was about time to shoot her scenes. I knew that her animation was going to be extremely difficult, but I was pretty keen for the challenge, just to try something that hasn't really been done too much in brick filming before. So I wanted to get it right. I bought these Lego bootleg arms for the Doc Ock. It also helped to give the character a wider range of movements, since the original Lego figure arms just don't really cut it. They look way cooler too, like the way the light bounces off of them. Once we got past the opening shot, Forrest pretty much just let me spread my wings. Just let me do what I wanted, so big props to him for that. You know, most of the choreography ideas and shot layouts just came from my head. Just watching other forms of animation can help give you inspiration, give you good ideas that you can branch out off of. I also tried to incorporate a couple of moves from the Miles Morales PS4 games. For me, when I get an idea, I find you gotta write it down in your notes, otherwise you'll probably, most likely, forget about it. Over time, you'll just have heaps of notes written down, and then you pretty much just need to go through and piece them together like a little puzzle in a way that makes sense for the fight scene to flow. I don't really bother with storyboards, just writing these ideas down and piecing the fight scene, the layout together, how it's going to be shot, how it's going to play out is enough. I can usually visualize it pretty well, so I only really get left with having to bring the shot to life. Most of the time, it doesn't really come out one-to-one to how you have it in your head. You kind of always got to make these little changes for practicality, but at least it gives you a baseline to follow. Another thing I wanted to do in this video was give a lot of the thugs their own style of fighting. So Miles just isn't going through fighting every thug hand to hand. Some guys will use knives, some nunchucks, others you can tell they're martial art experts or marksmen. It just gives the group a lot of more variety and gives Miles a lot more ways to approach taking them out. Most shots in this video required a technique called masking. Well, since Spider-Man is such a versatile character, it's pretty impractical to pull off some of these dynamic shots without rigging or masking. I try not to do it where possible, but a lot of the time it really does just elevate your projects, and as for characters like Spider-Man or say Superman, you kind of need to do it. I use these 3 rigs for this video. The blue one is good, came with 8 arms, but it doesn't really have a lot of weight on the base. The silver ones I much prefer, but after a while these little clips have started to break, so I kind of need to look at investing in new ones. I taped this one up for the interior shots because the lights were kind of bouncing off of the silver onto the Lego, so for certain scenes that was a pain. I just bought these arms from local electronic stores. You should be able to find them online or maybe even eBay. When masking, you want to shoot your shot and then your blank plate as well. If the camera doesn't move, you only need to do that initial blank plate at the start, probably do one at the end as well just in case. But if you have camera movement, like I did in this video, you're gonna have to want to shoot a blank plate for every single frame. I edit in Final Cut Pro, so what I do here is I overlap them with the blank at the bottom, and then the top one, I add the draw mask, edit out the part that I don't want, and there's your new image. You have to do this for every single frame if you want to use the rig. So while it's a long process, I find it always looks worth it, and it's pretty exciting to see the shot fully masked. Here is a shot that was extremely difficult. It's Miles flying up the building. I only really had a certain amount of Lego to use, so that's why the shot is extremely short. But it was also really difficult because I had to pull the rig in and out, animate the figure without bumping the set for every single frame because I needed to get the blank plates. Also, if you look closely behind him, you'll see that it's just 2 mirrors bouncing off the wall to sell the effect. I learned a lot about lighting with this project. A lot of the earlier shots, I kind of find I didn't really like how they were lit. We did fix most of them post, or tried to, but towards the end, the color gets so much better. Here is what my lighting setup looks like. It's pretty much just 4 basic desk lamps, and I've kind of put foil over them sometimes just to give them a bit of a different color. And then I have this big light overhead, which I also switch off sometimes depending on what the scene requires. Most of the time I will have all 5 of these on. In the city shot, I had the overhead light off. Then I also had these mini Lego lights in these buildings. I bought these lights off of eBay and man, they just improved the scene so much. You're kind of supposed to mount them onto the roofs and stuff, but I kind of just threw them in there and it worked completely fine. With this final scene, the set moves around a lot. You get shots from all different angles, and it takes a lot of time to move all these buildings around and reapply the lighting. So what I tried to do was animate all the shots from the right in one go, then all of the shots in the left, and then all of the shots in the middle. That way I didn't have to move the set around every single time the camera wanted to change angles. When going back to another shot, you have to be careful where everything was placed. Say for instance, when this dish was destroyed, I filmed it slamming Doc Ock and breaking it apart, but I also had to go back and film scenes before the dish was broken, so I needed to take note of where all the pieces were so I could reapply them in the correct positions later on. I usually just take a photo of the set with my phone, and then it's pretty easy to find out where they were laying. A lot of people ask, how do you get your head movements? It's quite simple, but sad. I only do it for certain figures, mostly ones that I have duplicates of and not expensive ones. If there's a figure that I know is going to be main character of the video, I will buy multiple versions of him. To do it, you pretty much just have to cut the neck piece down about halfway and then sandpaper it to give it this nice round effect. You then fill the headpiece up with blue tack and stick him on. It's pretty tricky and sometimes can be a pain to animate if your blue tack doesn't want to stick. Happens a lot to me. But it gives the characters so much more life and some unusual movement that you don't necessarily see in a minifigure. Blue tack is something I use a lot. It is your best friend when making these videos. I pretty much use it in every single shot. Legos kind of just want to fall over and do their own little thing, so it helps to keep the figures firm and in positions where gravity normally wouldn't let them be. For fake blood, I use a product off of eBay. It's pretty easy to find. You just search up fake blood. I think it's mainly used for makeup and stuff, but it's very easy to use for this and washes off just with water. I always manage to buy different versions every time, so it's best to buy it and test it out before you use it on a figure or something that you care about. It's usually pretty cheap, but I've had some that can just come out real runny and some that can actually have stained Lego before. So I usually try it on a brick or something that I don't really care about too much, let it sit for a few days, then wash it off and see what it's like. It can be hard to animate with because you can easily just rub it off with your hands by touching it, so you kind of got to keep track of where it is in between shots. For this running shot, I used a slider. It's the only shot in the video where I used it, but it just gave the camera this nice smooth effect. I was lucky enough to just go to one of my friend's parties, seen it in the corner of his rooms, and asked if I could borrow it. It's really great for smooth shots, but it also restricts a lot of the camera movement. If you wanted to make a quick camera adjustment, say the camera goes up or down, you don't really get that opportunity. So you kind of want to get the shot laid out and test it beforehand. It's something I definitely want to use more in the future for cinematic shots, but because right now so much of my animation has been hand-to-hand combat with the camera going off in all different directions and stuff, I haven't really gotten a chance to do these slow cinematic shots. Stop motion animation is a very long and tiring process. To even do a 4-minute action heavy project can be very daunting, especially at the start. You really just have to have faith in the product that you're going to create and stay inspired any way you can. Whether it's with games, movies, comics, anything that's relating to the character you're working with to help stay inspired. Most of this video was filmed on afternoons once I had finished work, or even on weekends and days off. But I also feel that not doing it full time helps me stay inspired. So whenever I do get the chance to animate, I go for the best product that I can instead of feeling that burnout. Even though the process is long, seeing the reactions from you guys in the comments just make it all worth it at the end of the day. If you can put aside an hour a day or even half to do anything, no matter how minimal, over time you'll slowly get there and finally finish your product. All these animation skills are just self-taught and just countless hours of practice, trial and error. It was only actually recently that I started taking the animation aspect of these videos more seriously. Over the years, my main focus has been on the story side, but focusing on animation has been a huge key to helping me stay inspired. For me, it's now the most important part. I would much rather watch a bunch of test videos of good animation than a 20-minute long video where the image isn't really the best to look at. That's just my opinion, but I feel like good animation just elevates every other aspect of your project. If you're looking to get into animation, all I can say is just give it a go. I started in my room one day when I was younger. I had this little cheap camera and terrible stop motion skills. Barely any Lego except like one townhouse and about 8 minifigures, and over time just slowly started to get better and better and build myself up to what I have now. Anyone can get this good at animation if you are truly passionate and have love for the art.